So yeah, thanks for doing this. So I remember from there was a video I watched a while ago. Did you guys make a switch at some point in the homeschooling experience to master books?
Yes, we switched to master books in 2019. At that time, my oldest was finishing third grade, about to go into fourth grade, and all of the things we had used up to that point just weren't working. I went to a homeschool convention and was really overwhelmed. Those can be overwhelming, just a lot of people, a lot of booths, but really what was overwhelming was I had no direction for where we were wanting to go, what would work for my kids. And then I started to ask, I would go into a booth and say, hey, not to just get straight to the point, but how much is this going to cost for the year? And so that's what I needed to know because I entered that convention with a certain amount. And so I walked away from multiple booths, we'll just put it that way. And so I ended up feeling a little lost and at the end of my rope, still wanting to homeschool, but not sure how. So a friend invited me over and she showed me master books and explained how biblically strong it is and how affordable it is. And I finally felt like I could see a light at the end of this tunnel and I could see the end of the tunnel to, oh, this is something I can use for many, many years to come. So it was like, I don't know, like a lifeboat or a, life raft or something where I was like, okay. So that really helped us once we switched and we could see where we were going. But math was the very last thing that I switched to master books.
Hmm.
So
Okay. So the one that you were using before, was it kind of the drill kind of questions, like do a bunch of questions, take a test, quiz? Was it that kind of math or?
yes, it was very teacher intensive. So it would require me to sit and work with each individual student for a minimum of an hour. There were many games involved. They were very hard to figure out. So you'd be sitting there with all these friction points, just trying to figure out how to do the lesson, how to teach the lesson. And the child is just, you're losing their attention and the toddler's screaming or whatever mess they're making in the background. It just was not going to work. And so we'd be getting to lunchtime, and the only thing I had gotten done was math, but I didn't really feel like I even got it done. I felt like we struggled through it and we didn't do it to the best of our ability. So my husband's always very good about noticing when things are not working for us, and he speaks into that and he sees things that I just can't see. I can struggle doing something and I will continue to struggle even though I know it might not be working, but for some reason, I'll just continue in that struggle until someone gives me permission to make a change. And for us, that was math. And he said, well, Master Books works really well for you with every other subject. Why don't you try their math? And I guess for me, it felt like I would be admitting defeat. And I know now that that's not true. But it represented a defeat to me of some way that I couldn't do this really difficult, intensive math. And wouldn't that be better for the kids? Well, it turns out that really wasn't better for the kids. And so he just gave me encouragement that, you're not just stepping completely off and going off this other path. You're just taking a little side step. You're not going to lose anything if you take a side step and try Master Books math. And it could be a new path that you're going to be on. And you might be saying goodbye to the old one and never going back on it again. And that's what actually happened. So he gave me permission to try Master Books math. We got it all ordered and got it in, and my kids loved it. We took the readiness test and we just decided to bump down a level to let them have time to transition, to get used to the feel of it, the color, which our previous curriculum was just black and white. So they love the color, they love the stories. They're like, this is it. I'm done. Oh, I can do this. And so it gave them a confidence boost. And we just never really looked back. And my oldest, or the oldest child of mine that jumped into math lessons, he's now in level 6. So he went through levels 3 through 6, I want to say. And he's been doing really well, along with Practice Makes Perfect for all the levels that we have that for, and with the academy courses. It's really been just wonderful.
Good. That's good to hear. So when you guys made the switch, did you do the switch before the start of a school year, or was it like midway through?
We were midway through, so that added to the scary factor of how do I know what level to get? How do I know where to start? And I think for a lot of moms, the reason why we can continue doing things that are not working is because we already dedicated the time to learn that curriculum and we had that down. And so it can be a friction point for a mom who's so busy to take the time, and she has to relearn a new curriculum and figure out the way that it works. And I think that's what I was resistant to, even though it would be better for my kids. I'm still a person too, and I still struggle with like my part in homeschooling where I have to give effort. And I know that, and I do give tons of effort, but learning a whole new curriculum, how it's designed to be used, getting any materials for it, it can just feel like a whole nother job for a busy mom. But I'm so glad that I did it. And math lessons was not what I thought it would be in terms of added work. It was very easy to figure out. The teaching companion gave me the encouragement that I needed, gave me the heart for the series, and it really helped me just adjust and go in a new direction, which was really a breath of fresh air. They did really well at first, like I said, with confidence, feeling like they were done. And then we kept going. And now I'm not saying they've hit a brick wall or anything, but they have definitely leveled up and they are definitely on level. And it's a good kind of struggle. So every new concept, they're like, okay, how do I do this again? And so I know that we've met them on level where they're being challenged. I explained to one of my kids yesterday, oh yeah, some maths you'd be doing 4 to 6 pages of this. He was like, no, that sounds horrible. Yeah. So it's just really well paced for them. Some of my kids do get overwhelmed from time to time, and they just have brain blocks just like anybody. So we have to go back and work on concepts again. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. I remind them, no one's perfect at math. Everyone makes mistakes at math, and that's okay. But keep going, and they're doing really well. And I'm so glad that we switched.
Yeah, cool. That's so cool. So when you guys were first starting out homeschooling, what did you guys look for in like math curriculum?
That's a great question, because when I first started homeschooling, I didn't know what I was supposed to be looking for. I just knew that I had 4 children in 5 years. I had an infant and a 5-year-old and 2 in the middle. And I just knew that I wanted to be home with them. So we started with a big box curriculum and just, I guess I did what was told to me. Trust the process. Trust the curriculum writers, right? They do this for a living. So just purchase something and just use it. And that's kind of what I did. So I didn't really know what I was looking for. And it took me a while to figure out what works for me as the teacher and what works for my children. And so as we've gone along the way, you know, some children need more, and with master books, you can give them more. And that's what makes it so great and so flexible. Then with others, with master books, what's provided is challenging to them, and they are learning it and they are getting it. So it's taken me a while to see that this method works so well for them. So to answer your question, I didn't really know what I was looking for, because growing up, I always thought that I hated math and that I wasn't good at math. But even today, as a result of math lessons, I'm like a total whiz at fractions. So everybody should just look out, because I've like relearned it all, and my math confidence has really boosted as well. So
Cool. Yeah. So when I met Kyla, so I wasn't homeschooled. I was from K through fifth grade. I was in a Lutheran school. I don't remember what curriculum it was, but I just remember the homework took hours at night, and my parents were like, why are they giving this much homework to a second grader and a third grader, you know? And I remember like, so when I made the switch to public school in sixth grade to graduation, um, math, well, there was so much less homework, or so it seemed, you know, coming from that. But I remember like seventh grade, especially with like long division. I was one that I loved math, but I got overwhelmed easily if I saw like a ton of problems at once, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know. And yeah, I remember like my teacher would get mad because she's like, why didn't you do the homework? I'm like, well, I understand the concept. You know, I'm acing my quizzes and tests. I'm like, why do I need, you know, like, why do I need to do 80 problems of long division? Oh, you know. So yeah. And then when I met Kyla and Angela was showing me the math lessons, I was looking through it. I was like, oh man, I wish I had this. Like, I love the Charlotte Mason method where, right, you do a couple problems and then you review the concept ever so often as you learn new concepts, you know?
It totally does build on one concept, builds upon another, and you have to go back and review the originally taught concept to then be able to build. And with the way that math lessons keeps cycling back through, it really helps students to use what they've already learned along the way. And so I really do see that happening, especially in multiplication. You're learning basic multiplication, but you're also learning addition along the way. And those skills are going to come back and forth. Then when you do get into the fractions, you might be thinking, oh, I'm doing a lot of dividing. I'm really doing dividing. But every time you're dividing, you are really multiplying to be able to do long division, to be able to change denominators and all of those things. You're using so much multiplication. So parents that are worried about multiplication exposure and learning their facts or having to memorize the chart, they really don't have to make that as much of a priority, because those skills are going to come into play naturally as your child is solving for other types of problems. They are going to be multiplying so much, and it will just naturally come to their mind the more that they're exposed and the more that they practice.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like, for me, even though it wasn't, that's where I was going with this. It wasn't until I started going through math level 6 when I started doing the academy. Kyle and I had just gotten married the year prior, and we had like just moved into our house. Our firstborn was like a month old, and you know, I would take over the cooking, some of the meals, and there were some meals I had to convert, like with the fractions and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't remember. I'm like, oh no, you know? And so when I started going through 6, I was like, oh, that's right. That's how you do that. I just haven't practiced it in like over a decade, you know? So it's cool that I don't know, for me, like, it was really nice that they, you know, even adults can learn from it, right? Like me for cooking. It was really nice to, you know, see those conversions with the examples and stuff. Yeah, so I think that's most of the questions. I think maybe one more question I had that I was just thinking of on the fly, just kind of like more an advice thing. How do you guys use math lessons for living education? Do you guys take out the what is it? The answer keys in the back of the book for homeschooling, or?
Well, no. Everyone
Okay.
does it differently. I will lose things. So in the younger years, I just keep the math lessons all together, and then I have it if I need it, because for me at this point, I am able to check their work, and I actually make my child sit with me and I check it. And so I am basically solving it myself with them. So they're doing it double. I don't just have them turn it in and then mom checks it off in the corner by herself. Anything that they do, I sit with them and I go through every single thing as another way to expose them to what they learned, to review what they learned, and to make sure that they have it. So when you find an error in their answer, you've got to dig in and discover where that issue could be. So if it's multiplying by multiple digits, is the issue in the partial product 1, partial product 2 or 3? Was it in our adding, our carrying? You will find it if you become like a math detective. So by sitting through and reviewing the answers with them and going step by step, I am spending more time, but that's okay because that's time well spent. It's good for my skills and it's good for them. So we don't utilize the answers as much unless we need them to just if we're totally lost, but that's very rare. So we utilize them as needed, but I have found that review time to be very helpful. I will say Math 6 has been different this year, and I do love the answers book being separate. That is such a wonderful resource. And when you get into some of the examples, it's so helpful to look at the answer key to see, okay, this is kind of the desired route that the answer is going for, the desired amount of work shown. And so that helps me to compare to what my child did. And then I can look at, okay, well, this is what the answer was going for. So what do we need to add to the work that you did? Maybe you didn't show your work well enough, or maybe your factor tree might have different numbers than the answer key, but does your factor tree still turn out? Like, yes. So you did it well. So there's a lot of value in the answer keys, but there's also a lot of value in sitting there and making sure that your child didn't just get the answer, but they know how to get the answer, and that they know that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to find the correction, and they're better for it, actually, as a result of going through it together.
Cool. I can't remember what my wife said. I haven't even asked Angela this. I'm surprised I haven't. But I'm curious. So, like, before Master Books, how long does a homeschooling day, like, take? Is it kind of like public schools where it's like, what, like 7 to 3 or 8 to 3 or something like that? Or is it shorter, longer?
That's the cool thing about homeschooling is it's going to be unique to you and your style and your children. And some families don't start their homeschool day until after lunch. Some don't start it until 10. If you value just letting them sleep in and have a slow morning, if you have night owls, it can really begin and end whenever it works for a family. So I always just say it really depends on the assignment for the day. And so in math, if it's a concept that is just going to be harder to learn, or it's a new one, we will be spending more time on it. But if it's a review day, they're going to go through it much faster, and that's okay. So just do what is needed for the assignment. And if you feel that you need more work or more problems, I really recommend Practice Makes Perfect workbooks. They can be added right along with the lesson that you're in. You can add in a practice page, or you can do what my family does is I allow my students to finish a level and then they are handed their reward, which is more math. Just kidding. But I give them their Practice Makes Perfect book, and we use that as a bridge between levels. And at first they're all so confident. They're like, oh, wow, I know how to do all of this. And then they get to the middle and they're like, oh, wait, how do I do this again? And this was everything review just from the lesson from the course that they just finished. But they still need that added review. So that helps them a lot before they are then handed their new book. And every level of math lessons begins and ends with some review. So the review is so helpful. I just can't get enough review for the kids to help build their confidence, help them to be in a good place in their math brain, to find out how to get to the answer. And that's going to look differently for different children, the way that they visualize, the way that they think. It's really cool that you can adapt the lesson for the kids. So it can really take a different amount of time for every family. But with Master Books, it's written for homeschooling families in mind. You are living life. You've got laundry going on in the background. You've got to get some family member somewhere, or something breaks or something terrible is happening in life, all the while you're trying to hold it all together. So Master Books makes it very life-proof, and you're still able to homeschool and be accomplished and grow together as a family, because it's written for homeschoolers in mind, who are real people living real life, and we're doing that every single day.
Man, that sounds so nice. Like, because I remember being in the classroom at school, and, teacher would be done lecturing. We'd have some time to do our work before the bell rang for next class. And, there'd be more often than not, there'd be times where, hey, cool, I got done with my work, so I don't have homework. But now I'm waiting 20 minutes for the bell to ring for my next class. And it's like, man, like in a homeschool setting, it'd be nice to just move on to the next thing. Like, like our kids are going to have it good. It sounds like your kids have it good. Like, oh my goodness.
So our homeschool day takes a long time, because it feels that way for me, because I'm responsible for all the kids. So I kind of jokingly call it homeschool jail. Mom's in homeschool jail all day long, and I'm not out until everyone's done. I know that's kind of a negative slant on it, but it kind of feels that way sometimes, where I'm not free to do some of the things I need to do. But Master Books is written to the student, and so that does provide them more ownership, more independence, so that they can take the reins, and I can say, well, you do this one. I'm going to go do something real quick, and I'll come back and check. So that being there is so different than the curriculum we were once using, where I really was in a penitentiary of math curriculum at that point. But anyways, the older that they get, the more independent they are. And I am freed up where I can be working in the kitchen while they're at the table, and I can come over and help them. But I am not just glued to my seat with them. And when one child gets done on a beautiful day or whatever, they can say, Mom, I'm done with math and language. Can I take a break? And I'm like, yeah. So they run outside and do whatever. And then I'm freed up to help the next person that needs me. And so all throughout the day, they're getting a well-rounded life. They're getting life that's just beyond education. They're getting to explore their interests. They're getting to do chores, which is really important. And they're learning time management and all sorts of things. So I love it. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It's going to look like yours, and you'll figure out what that looks like as you go.
Oh, awesome. Maybe this might be this is just me as a young parent just trying to soak up knowledge. But shoot, what was it? Okay, I've been hearing this thing lately, or I've kind of heard it come up in talks since working here, how apparently as your kid goes or schools or learns with Master Books, as they're getting older, does it teach them to be more independent with the work? Like it's self-taught almost, or is that just kind of dependent on, I don't know. Am I wrong, or is that?
It is. So you're developing habits. So with Master Books, the way that it's designed, it's written to the student. They have a daily schedule that they can follow. The more that parents equip their kids and tell them, this is your education and I'm here to support you and help you, but this is something that you can do. And every little bit a parent can give a child more ownership, more clear instruction, and the child will be able to pick that up and do it. And then, of course, once they do, what do they need? They need to hear that positive praise for how well they did, and to show them, you didn't think you could do this, but you did. You struggled today, and that's okay. You did it. You came out on top. And so Master Books is written for that. And the older they get, The longer a student is homeschooled, it is what they know. It is their routine. It is their life. They are not comparing their life to public school students, just like you cannot compare your life to someone else's experience, an experience that you've never had. But those of us that grew up in public school, we carry a lot of feelings with that experience, whether that be a positive or some negative experiences that we had been through. We carry that into educating our kids at home. And so that can be part of our struggle and our worries and our concerns, for them. And they don't have that. They just have the experience that they have. And it can be an overtly positive one for them. So they need a lot of praise. They need a lot of breaks, and our kids need a lot of empathy. Just as you would go out and face something really difficult for your brain to think about or for you to try to deal with, I always liken it to my husband can go out and change the tire on our car like in no time. But if I had to go do that, I think I could, but it would take me so long, and I would be so frustrated, and I would just want to give up. And I think that is how our kids feel sometimes. So empathy is so important. Just because I could solve that fraction problem, or I know what 9 times 7 is right off the top of my head, they don't, and that's okay. And it's going to take them longer to find it, but I need to support them and have empathy for the difficulty that they're facing, and then, just cheer them on that they did it, just as I would want to be cheered on if I changed the tire on our car, or any accomplishment really. So I think, it's definitely builds and grows. It's constantly challenging them, but at the same time, it's achievable. Master Books makes the challenge worth it to where they come out on the other side, and it's definitely something that they can achieve and say, wow, I did it, and I'm going to do it again tomorrow.
That's so cool. Yeah, like our son, he's 3.5, and when he has like little milestones, like he's into drawing and coloring, and sometimes it's a scribble. Hey, Daddy, look, I drew you. I'm like, good job. Keep up the good work. It's like, oh, it's so precious.
Yeah. But to them, it is huge.
It is. Yep.
It is huge. Someone once said, why are children so upset when their balloon flies away in the sky? And the parent can look down and say, oh, it's just a balloon. Like, it's okay. But to make it easy for the parent to understand, it would be if like your wallet were tied to that balloon, you would be, or your car keys or whatever, you would be freaking out just as much as they would be. And so it's so important to try to remember they're people too. They may be younger. They don't have the same experiences and wisdom that we have, but their feelings are just as valid. So if they are excited about something, we need to meet them there. If they're frustrated, we need to see them there. And we need to help them when they need help, just along their journey to help them become who God's designed them to be. And that's our joy as parents, whether we homeschool or not, just as parents in general. We're there to champion our kids. And it's not always easy, and it's not always pretty, but it's for the glory of God. And we need to continue to see that in everything that we do. And I'm saying that after a couple nights of some kids throwing up. It's hard to remember in the middle of the night, this is for the glory of God, but it really truly is. And God can use anything for his glory. And he does so much in the hearts of parents. And what we're doing, he's changing and shaping our hearts as we are attempting to lead our kids to the heart of God. He does so much in all of us if we will let him and see those opportunities. So I love that you shared that your son is wanting to show you what he's doing, and, he's doing great. And you'll just be amazed in a couple of years what he'll be showing you. It'll be so much beyond what he's showing you now. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So that's really cool.